This video is going to show you how to install Cypher Workbench from code and get it running on your laptop or workstation. So Cypher Workbench was recently released as an Neo4j Labs project. This is the repository in GitHub. It's publicly available under the Apache 2 license. What we're going to do first is we're going to pull down the code first from Git. And let me run the command to do that. Running this command git clone is going to pull down the code from the repository. And here we have a Cypher Workbench folder which was created. If we look in that folder, we've got a few folders. There's a UI folder which contains the React front end. There's an API folder which contains the GraphQL API. We're also going to have a third part which is a Neo4j database. It can be an Aura database, or it can be Neo4j Community or Neo4j Desktop or Enterprise. So I'm going to show you today using Neo4j Desktop. What we're going to do is I have two different terminal windows here. I'm going to set one to work in the UI folder and one to work in the API folder. First thing we want to do is we want to run npm install, which means you're going to need to have Node.js installed on your workstation. And Node.js is going to install npm for you automatically. So npm install, we're going to run this. This is going to pull down all the dependent Node packages into the folder. And what we're going to do next is each of the folders. So when we did that, we actually this node modules folder got created. One in the API folder, one in the UI folder. If I were to look also at the hidden files in here, you'll see some hidden files. There's this .env.example. The same thing over here. What we're going to do is we're going to copy that .env example to a .env file. So a .env file is something that typically like Node.js or React apps use that contains environment variables or environment information. I'll show you what's in here. On the API side, we have the information to connect to Neo4j. So this may be different for you, but in my case, I'm going to have a Neo4j desktop instance or database running. That's my connection string. I've got a user, which is Neo4j. My password is password, and I'm going to be using the default database of Neo4j. You might want to change the default database to something like Workbench or something else if you have Neo4j Enterprise. But I'm not going to change anything right now. And I don't think we'll need to change anything during this installation. I'll show you the same thing. We'll do the same thing over here. We'll copy the .env example to .env to show you in there. You shouldn't need to change anything in this either. So now that I've done my npm install and have my environment variables set up, the next thing I'm going to do is I want to create a database. And I've actually already, oops, not there. I've already done that. I'm not going to show you that. This is, you can look on how to do this with Neo4j Desktop. The one thing that I will note is you're going to need to make sure under the plugins folder here that you've got APOC installed. So if you've just starting with Neo4j, you click over here, there'll be like an install button, and then it'll walk through the steps of how to install. It's really easy. And so then make sure that's happened, and also make sure that your database is running. And now the next thing I'm going to do is in your browser window, I use Google Chrome. You can connect to your local Neo4j database. In this case, localhost 7474 browser. If I just run that, so it may ask you to log in. I've already logged in. And there's nothing in my database at the moment. There's no constraints, I believe. And there's no data. Next step is I use VS Code as my code editor. I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a folder to my workspace. So this is the folder that was downloaded. I'm going to add that. And the actual scripts used to initialize the database, they're actually under this Docker folder. There's some nesting going on here, which we're going to click down under this nesting. So Docker cwconfig, db setup. In here, there's 3 files. You're only going to be using the second 2 files unless for some reason you have a really old database. So I'm going to click this one, which will be used for like Neo4j 4.4 up to Neo4j 5. I'm using Neo4j 5.14, and I'm going to take that, copy it. One thing to note is in Neo4j browser, you want to make sure this enable multi-statement query editor is checked on, and that means I can run multiple statements at the same time with one command. So I'm going to paste that. Then I'm going to click the play button here, and we should see everything get successfully created. I'm going to scroll down and confirm that's the case. Yes, that's the case. So we go back to our code window. I'm going to do the same thing for this file. All you got to do is select it, copy it, move over to your browser window, paste it, and hit the play button here. And we have everything that's created. Now, if you want, you'll see that there's show constraints, for instance. We'll show you all these constraints that were created. If I were to like match and return, and you'll see there are some initialized data in there. All right, with that being said, we can close all those windows. The next thing to do is we're going to start up the API. Oops, so we're going to go back to our code window. Now we've done the npm install already, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say npm start. And you should see something like this. The API is going to start. It's a GraphQL server. You'll see this little segment key message come out, and also you'll see this license info, blah, blah, blah. And now we see our servers running on localhost port 4000 at this GraphQL endpoint. I'm going to do the same thing over here in my UI folder, npm start. This is going to take a little bit longer. So we'll flip back to the window here. So what happens is, this is a React. This is how like React typically works in a development environment. It launches a tab in your browser, and then while it's doing all its compilation and stuff like that. So as it goes through and tries to compile all the code, the browser window is waiting for it to be done. So we'll just give it a few more seconds. The code base is fairly large, so it's got a lot of code to crank through. And should be, hopefully, maybe 3 more seconds, 5 more seconds. We'll find out. And probably almost done. Your mileage may vary. There we go. Finally, it comes through. And so you'll see all this like stuff. This is like developer stuff saying, oh, here's all the things that you could be doing as a developer to make things better. But we'll ignore that for now. And you should be presented with a login screen. So when you ran the database initialization script, it created a default user. The username was admin, and the password was Neo4j, all lowercase. So I hit that and hit continue or hit the enter button. And now we've brought up Cypher Workbench locally. And that's the end of this video. You can look for some other videos on how to use Cypher Workbench. Thanks so much.